Most people have the experience of sitting down at the computer to briefly check email or look something up, only to discover hours later that they're still online. And with the vast array of information the web puts at your fingertips, it's no wonder. In today's world, this can be a serious problem for adults and teens. As you probably know, an addict is someone who is physically or mentally dependent on a thing and has difficulty using it in moderation, even when its use begins to have negative effects on his or her life. Just as with alcohol or drugs, the internet can cause unhealthy behavior and begin to take up too much time and energy, especially in the lives of children. To get started, let's think about some of the possible indications of internet addiction by looking at this question. When you're done, click Next. Before we learn what to do about internet addictions, we first need to understand exactly what they are. Internet addictions are generally grouped into 5 categories: cybersexual addiction, cyber-relational addiction, net compulsions, information overload, and computer addiction. In the first of these, a cybersexual addiction, Internet users are more interested in online pornography or cybersex than they are in their own lives, eventually giving up real romantic relationships entirely. This is especially dangerous for teens, who might be exposed to online predators and cheat themselves out of the experience of healthy, age-appropriate relationships. Cyber-relational addiction occurs when someone has an addiction to online chatting, message boards, or social networking sites like Facebook or MySpace. When this happens, online friendships become more important to the teen than his or her real friends are, and real-life relationships suffer or end altogether. Net compulsions refer to obsessive online gambling, shopping, or use of bidding sites like eBay. As with other forms of web dependencies, the amount of time spent online with such an addiction can upset real-life relationships and responsibilities, not to mention create debt. With information overload, excessive amounts of time are spent on Google or another search engine. This leads to obsessive-compulsive behavior and lessen productivity in other areas. Finally, computer addiction, while not specifically web-based, is a 5th form of internet dependency. Users become addicted to playing games, either interactive or not, and spend less and less time in the real world. Let's review the 5 main types of internet addiction by answering this question. When you're done, click Next to go on with the lesson. The best way to determine if a child is a healthy internet user is to be aware of the amount of time he or she spends on the web and the way that time is used. Asking kids to keep a journal recording the amount of time spent on the computer is one way to make them mindful of this. You can also encourage them to ask their friends and family if they feel internet usage is excessive. An internet addiction can be harmful physically, socially, and mentally. Physically, time on the computer means less time exercising or being outdoors. In fact, studies have found strong associations between excessive internet use and obesity in teens, who are less likely to play sports or expend energy when they're leading sedentary lives in front of the computer. Socially, an addiction to the web means less time with friends and loved ones. While communication by email or through social networking sites might increase, actual quality time decreases dramatically. And finally, an internet addiction means less time devoted to schoolwork, as well as less time reading, engaging in conversation, or otherwise stimulating the mind. The signs and symptoms of an internet addiction vary between individuals, but generally, if the teen has a feeling of guilt associated with time online, attempts to cut down on internet use and fails, lies about time spent online, or begins fostering relationships with strangers, there could be an underlying internet addiction. Do you think you can recognize the signs of internet addiction? Test yourself by answering this question. Click Next to continue when you're done. How did you do? Dr. Gerald Block, a psychiatrist who has researched internet addiction, has developed a helpful mnemonic device for remembering the indicators of internet addiction. Signs. Look over what each of the letters stand for. Before internet addiction becomes a problem, it's important to take certain preventative steps with teens. Make a point to help kids develop other interests and engage in non-computer related activities. Spend time with the child and urge him or her to hang out with friends, especially those who have healthy behaviors associated with the internet. Let's think about the ways to prevent internet addiction by considering this scenario. Click Next to finish up the lesson when you're done. While the internet can be fun and a great resource, especially for teens, it's important to remember the signs of an unhealthy dependence on or addiction to the web. If you do think a teen has a problem with internet addiction, there are several things you can do to help him or her get over it. Most important, begin setting a strict limit on their time on the computer, and urge the child to replace that time with schoolwork or being with friends. And, above all, be supportive. Here are some real-life examples of how the concepts discussed in this lesson could be used in a classroom, either as a teaching tool or an administrative aid.